Today, we are talking about career reinvention, building a business after burnout, and how to land your dream job in record time, all with someone who's lived it, flipped it, and now teaches others how to thrive through change. My guest today is Josef Stetter, an award-winning speaker, best-selling author of 11 books, and a recruitment expert who's helped over 12,000 people find jobs that actually they love. He's pivoted careers 9 times, left high-paying roles that didn't feed his soul, and now runs a consultancy that transforms not just careers, but entire company cultures. Josef, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Jamila. It's an honor and a pleasure to be here.
Super excited to talk to you about all of these things. And one of the things that I just learned before we hit the record button is that you are kind of an expat kid grown up. You grew up as an expat kid of sorts. Can you tell us a bit about that?
So my father, God rest his soul, was a civil engineer. He was hired by a company to build all the highways in Ivory Coast. We moved there. I was born in Israel. So my dad worked in Ivory Coast, and then he did really well, and he got promoted. We moved to Cameroon, then back to Israel, then to Canada, and then I spent kind of 2 summers and a bit in Florida, in the U.S., living there and working for my dad a little bit in between, kind of in high school and in between kind of school years.
So you went through a lot of change as a child. Do you think that this going through, different international moves made it easier for you to change careers when you became an adult?
I think there's a lot of value in living in different countries and learning from the culture and learning the way things are done. I think for me, pardon my expression, but I was kind of the black sheep of my family because my father was a civil engineer till the day he passed. My brother studied mechanical engineer and works as a civil engineer right now. My mom retired as a head of guidance in high school kind of thing, teacher, and my sister is a teacher. I kind of followed the path of, okay, I started my career in the world of finance because, I come from a very proud Jewish family that was like, you need to get a good job. You need to go get an education. So I studied finance because it's a good job. After 7 years in the banking system, you couldn't pay me $1 million to work in a bank again unless I was hired as a C-level executive where I was allowed to change the way they treat people because in my opinion, you probably get better treatment in prison than you do in a bank. And that's my experiences of it. But I've always kind of had a, curiosity, I'll call it that, and a burning desire to figure out my purpose. And so when I achieved certain plateaus, I got bored and I either got fired or quit because I got bored. And so to me, it wasn't necessarily the pay. It was, I'm actually miserable. I'm going to work and, I'm getting mentally and physically, emotionally ill. And sadly, in North America right now, the statistics vary between 73 to 90% of people hate their job. And salary is actually number 7 on the top 10 reasons why people hate their job. The top 3 region is number 1, extremely toxic culture. Number 2, lack of clear understanding what leadership actually expects you to do or wants you to do. And number 3, there's no opportunity to bring in new ideas or innovation. And so people kind of go, I have something that can improve that. And if you've ever watched the show Undercover Boss, I love at the end of the show where the executive goes, oh my God, I should speak to the people that work here. I might get some insights. So
huge epiphany for them that they should actually talk to the people who are running their company.
As opposed to just looking at an Excel spreadsheet and making decisions, for example.
So what I found interesting about your background is that you have changed careers and jobs so many times. Did you feel as though this was sort of in a search to find yourself? Were you in search of something when you were doing that?
Again, I think at the beginning of my career, it was about chasing the money and chasing the title and making my parents proud. That was the first part of it. After a certain point, like for example, I became the director of operations for a private college and I was working on average, I would say 80 hours a week. I was working 6 days a week, 12 to 14-hour days. And my father had just been diagnosed with leukemia and started chemo. Now, as kind of a quick background, my father had a massive heart attack. So his left side of the heart was dead. And so because of the heart, they couldn't do radiation with the chemo. And because of the cancer, they couldn't do bypass on his heart. So his breakfast was 18 pills. So when they started the chemo, he went and had zero immune system, and he was rushed into the hospital as a reaction because he got pneumonia from the chemo. And I walked into the owner of the private college and it was like, my father was just rushed to the hospital. I need to go. And she looked at me and went, no. And I was like, excuse me? She's like, I think you're just making an excuse to leave work early. And I'm like, listen, I work here 6 days a week, 10 to 14-hour days. Do you honestly think that my excuse to leave work early is my father might be dying? And she said, yeah. And I looked at her and I went, I have one father. I can find another effing job. And I walked out. And then the next day I came in with a box. I was ready, assumed that I'm fired. And the owner came into my office and was like, how's your dad? I'm like, he's stable. He's in ICU, but he's stabilized. I'm going to go back to the hospital tonight. And she looked at me, she's like, you weren't lying? I'm going to go, what is wrong with you? And I quit within basically 2 weeks because I have morals and ethics that I'm not just going to leave someone hanging. And then after I quit, I filed a massive complaint against her with the government that had her shut down because I was like, seriously, my father is about to die. That to you is an excuse to leave work early. And so I think also it opened my eyes to, and this is why I'm no longer a recruiter, I'm a cultural specialist, basically, a corporate culturist as I branded it, because recruiting is one thing, but understanding the cultural fit into a company is, right now, turnover in North America alone is costing $1.4 trillion a year. And burnout in 2024 cost $468 billion.
Numbers. Those are huge numbers.
Yeah.
Like after COVID, the corporations were trying to get people back into offices, and there was this huge push, and then there was pushback, and now it seems to be, kind of settling on most people like hybrid, remote, but there still seems to be this, as you mentioned, like a toxic culture and an overall lack of empathy.
Mm-hmm.
Almost like a conflict between employers and employees in the workplace. What have you seen in terms of that?
So it's interesting that you brought that up because just before COVID happened, Google in the UK was actually testing a 4-day work week. And they actually found that their productivity increased by about 40% before pandemic forced it kind of on everybody. Now, I think there's kind of a few layers of problems here. Number one, you have a lot of companies that preach culture, but don't actually practice what they preach. So if I may share a quick story and example for that. So I used to be a stock trader. I used to answer the phone. It's a great day or it's a fantastic day at name of bank. My name is Joseph. How can I help you? One of my coworkers complained that me saying great or fantastic could be interpreted as the bank is making too much money. So senior management had 3 2-hour-long meetings to discuss whether or not I was allowed to say great or fantastic, and then decided it was easier to ban me from saying great and fantastic than to retrain 120 traders on the floor. Now, after this happened, one of the senior VPs came to me and said, Joseph, morale here is extremely low. You're always so positive. You're always so energetic. I'd like you to open a social committee and run a few events to help boost morale. I'm like, okay, great. The first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to organize a potluck because everyone loves food. And he was like, yeah, that's probably not going to work because the majority of the traders here are bachelors. They'll probably just give you $5, $10 and eat what other people are bringing. I'm like, don't worry, I'll take care of it. So I created an Excel spreadsheet. This many people bring drinks. This many people bring in cookies. This many people bring in cakes. This many people bring courses. And I logged off the phone for 2 hours, starting with the executive VP. I said, I don't care if you make it, your partner makes it, your mom makes it, or you buy it, but you have to sign up for something. And I went one by one to about 150, 160 people. The day of the potluck, I logged off the phone for 2 hours to organize the food so that the meat wasn't beside the chocolate, that there was a logical flow of kind of people grabbing what they need and getting back. Now, for the next 3 months, everyone talked about how much variety of food it was, how good it was, the ambiance that I created. And during the quarter, I won or came in the top 3 for 7 out of 10 contests, including answering 155 trading calls in one shift. The bank refused to give me my bonus because I was logged off the phone for 4 hours to organize the very thing that the senior VP asked me to do. So in terms of that, understand that, for example, a lot of companies say, oh yeah, we're fun, but we don't do anything fun in the organization. We care about our people, but meanwhile, they micromanage and yell and scream at everybody. So there's a level where, because corporate culture has become a buzzword in a sense, just like social responsibility, just because you're feeding the homeless, and I'm not dismissing that that is an important issue, but more often than not, executives don't ask their employees what causes they actually care about. And if you find out that your staff, let's say, cares about, let's say, minorities more, why not donate to minorities? You're still getting your tax receipt, you're still getting the PR, you're still getting the same level of what you're getting from just feeding the homeless and getting your kind of generic PR. And so what's happening right now is that especially the millennials and the Gen Zs, for example, are kind of going, I want to feel like I make a difference. Just because I work for the company and the company cut a check, I wasn't involved or I didn't do something. So, can we create a thing where the employee of the month, you donate to a charity of their choice in their name so that they kind of go, you know what, like my father passed away from cancer. So if you donate to cancer research in my name, on behalf of my father, or to honor my father, to me, that's more important than going, oh my God, you got a tax receipt for, let's say, sponsoring a hockey team or something like that I don't play hockey, so it doesn't really matter to me in essence. That's the first part. So I think that companies kind of try to go, yes, we do it. And there's a lot of management, not leadership, because managers are worried about their own job. Leaders want to lose their job, because if I'm leading you and you're inspired and you get promoted, chances are I will get promoted because you're going to do my job and I'm going to have bigger strategy, visionary kind of goals to do. So we need to get away from this management, because just because it's a title doesn't really mean much. And so what you're saying is that companies like, and again, banks, insurance, they know they can get away with murder because they have 160 lawyers sitting there twiddling their thumbs, waiting for anybody to try to sue them. Okay. But if you look at tech companies, and again, I'm just going to name a few giants on purpose, Google, Facebook, they do so much to care for the employee that even if the culture might be like, you got to get results, you're enjoying everything else around it, that it kind of balances itself out. So the first problem is kind of define the culture. And then once you define it, and I'm going to steal from Guy Kiyosaki, who was the evangelist for Apple, he said, companies go to and create these beautiful mission statements and vision statements, but go to Burger King and ask the manager at Burger King, what is the mission and vision of Burger King? Unless there's a plaque right in front of them, they will have no clue. Create a mantra. So Nike's mantra was just do it. And if you've watched the Air Jordan story when they went and pitched Michael Jordan about his shoes, and they went all in on him and were willing to pay the $5,000 to $10,000 fine for him to wear colored shoes, for example, it was just do it. So you don't need to make it a sequence, friends. You could be like professional. Okay, so what is it that we're doing that is meeting professional in the ethical form of the word, in the kind of the way, even the way that the office looks? Is it, Mickey Mouse, like paintings there, or do we have more professional looking paintings? Is it white, or is it, neon colored, for example? So be consistent with the word professional. So everything that you're saying, if you're saying integrity, then show integrity and have the leadership demonstrate that, not just preach it all the time. Second thing is, there's an idea of change management because, we've been doing it like this. What I'm finding is that, again, stealing from one of my clients, as CEO of a company, I should never be the smartest man in the room. I understand concepts of marketing, but I hired geniuses that know marketing to do my marketing for me. I love reading about the law, but I'm not a lawyer. I understand accounting, but I don't enjoy sitting there and doing the Excel spreadsheets. I'll hire people for that. So there's a level of recognize people for their genius and give them the resources they need to succeed. and then stay out of their way, because if you're the CEO and you're the visionary, you kind of go, we want to go from here to here. This is how we're going to go it. And then now go to each of your geniuses and say, what do you need from me to get this done in your department, for example? And, I often talk to, let's say, a C-level executive. I say, okay, do you have an executive assistant or an assistant? And they're like, yes. And okay, if they do a great job, how do you reward them? More often than not, the answer is, well, I probably just give them like a $3,000 bonus. And I said to them, as much as the money can probably make an impact, instead of giving them a $3,000 bonus, why don't you pay their salary for the day and send them to pamper themselves in the spa? I guarantee you that assistant will come back rejuvenated, excited, because, especially in the US, where, an assistant might be making $30,000, $40,000, $50,000 as a salary, sometimes going to the spa is a luxury. As much as, again, my wife loves her nails and stuff like that, and the hair and stuff like that. But to go to a spa where you can get a massage and you can kind of just, relax, it rejuvenates you mentally, but it also shows appreciation. Yes, the money can pay bills, but it's impersonal. When you send your assistant and go, you know what, I want to treat you to a day where it's on me. Lunch is on me. There's a innate, oh my God, you care about me, and you're going to come back more. And, I had the opportunity to build a call center from scratch for a company that owns approximately 75 private colleges across Canada. When I was asked to build a call center, I went to my VP and I said, as long as we're producing, stay the hell out of my way and let me run things the way I want to. And then give me $5,000 that I'm going to spend on my team. You don't ask any questions. That was my conditions. Now, understand that the restrictions they gave me was that my team has to call leads that are more than 4 months old and more than 75 kilometers or 50 miles from the nearest campus. And the expectation was that my team will do an additional $300,000 in revenues for the company for the year. In less than 6 months, my team did $2.25 million. Now, so in the first round, I hired about, I think, 6 to 8 people. I went to Dollarama and I bought each one of them, like, a funny squish ball, like stress ball. I bought them some funky pens and some stickers. And so you can imagine, first day in the job, they come in, there's gift bags waiting for them, first of all. Then I said to each one of them, you're going to be here for at least 8 hours a day. Go spend up to $40 on something that you connect to. I don't care if it's a plant. I don't care. Like, one girl, I think, bought this like fuzzy thing that you could rub on her, put on the wall of the cubicle, or whatever worked for her. I don't care if it's, a toy or anything like that helps boost your spirit. Bring me the receipt. I'll give you the money in hand. I gave every single person on my team nicknames. So we had Giggles. I had a nearly 60-year-old woman. She was Hot Mama. We had Officer. And so I addressed everybody by their nicknames. I bought a foosball table for everybody. And I said, if you had like a really nasty call where they were just, yelling at you and screaming at you and whatever, get off the phone, go smash the foosball, get that in it, go for a walk, clear your head. Right. And so I created an environment where people were happy. Every Friday I would bring in snacks. So I would bring in like donuts or chips or something. They got so excited about having, snacks that they actually created a schedule. Each one of them was responsible for spending $10 to $20 per week to bring in food so that they always had food in the area. So we were doing so well that my VP was like, okay, your challenge for this week is to generate $150,000 because we were already way ahead of schedule. And I told the team that. And again, as part of my environment, every week for each employee, I was like, okay, tell me 1 or 2 things that you did really, really well, and let's celebrate that. And then I'd say, what were some of the objections or what are some of the difficulties that you had? And rather than me as a director telling them what to do, I turned around to the team and said, what have you done? What do you suggest that could help this person because you're doing the same thing? So anyways, I told the team, we need to make $150,000. And if you achieve it by Friday, the whole team will be rewarded. Given that I already created a culture where they knew I was taking care of them, they were excited because they knew I wasn't going to go all out. By Wednesday at 2:15, we were at $220,000. So I said, okay, Friday, don't bring lunch, VIP on me. Friday at noon, the team had done $310,000. Okay. Now, I gave every single one of them VIP movie tickets to go right after lunch to the movie theaters. And I gave each one of them a $40 kind of food certificate. And I said, you don't need to give me it back if you guys decide to share food. It's yours. Now, so even though we are an outbound call center, in case anyone comes back, I'm going to stay back and I'm going to take the calls. And whatever deals I close, I will credit the salesperson that started the conversation, for example. And so I actually closed 7 deals for them. Now my VP found out and was like, "Did you just send your entire team to the movies during work hours?" I'm like, "Yeah." He's like, "What's wrong with you?" I'm like, "You asked for 150,000, and we gave you 310, 15,000, whatever it was." He was like, "Yeah, but there's like 4 more hours. I could have sold more." I looked at him and go, "If next week they don't produce more than what we just did this week, you can go ahead and fire me." And the next week we did $400,000. Right. But again, I understood the importance of when you take care of people. I never had to ask any of my team members who can stay overtime or behind numbers because they loved each other and respected me. That it's been, let's say, 10, 15 years. Most of the team still contacts me and says, "You know what? You were one of my favorite leaders. You made such an impact on me because of the fact that you cared." It wasn't about the Excel spreadsheet. It was the ambiance, the environment where, my team was so comfortable with me that if they went partying the previous night and they called in and said, "I'm a little, woozy, hungover," or whatever you want to call it, take the day off, they were never fired. They were just celebrated for being human. And I've understood that because even, before I was married and now have 2 amazing, beautiful kids, I used to salsa dance. I used to perform and compete. And, I go pretty regularly. And a lot of times you see people like, "Oh, hook me up." Like when you see the bouncer, like they come to the bouncer, like, "Hook me up. I'm a regular here. Let me in for free." I never asked for that. But I would come and I would speak to the security guards. And especially when it was wintertime and it was cold, I'd go and I'd buy them coffee and I'd buy them some chocolate. I'm like, "Here." And I humanized the experience with them where I spent 10 minutes talking to them, not because I was trying to get in for free, but because it was just a right thing to do. And when it was cold or they were like, "Oh, I'm hungry," I would go and I'd grab them a bite. So because I did that first, when I had, let's say, friends, I'm like, "Hey, I have like 20 friends. Can we, any chance we could skip the line?" Not only did they allow us to skip the line, but they kind of gave me VIP, "Here, get a drink or get something in the club," because I always took the time to take care of them. And it wasn't about me first versus that. So I think in the organizational culture, there's a lot of me rather than how are we raising the team. And so that's killing it. Second, like I said, it's lip service where it's like, "Yeah, we have culture," but we don't actually do anything that's culturally relevant. Right. And it's all show, for example. Third, you have this mindset of, well, we just need to get you productive. But, and again, referring to undercover boss, more often than not, the ivory tower is so disconnected from the day-to-day stuff. Like the CEO, you're making millions and millions of dollars. You have someone who's in the warehouse that's making minimum wage, that's working 2 or 3 jobs, and you have no clue the difficulties they're going through. And so there's a level where I'm not saying, go spend on every employee and change the salary structure. Because again, salary is only number 7 in the top 10 reasons people leave jobs. But, have programs to help to recognize, to create a safe space for people to kind of go, "You know what, I've got medical issues. Is there any way that I can get an advance, any way I can get something that can help me in the future?" Because if you're willing to do that, you'll be amazed what the majority of people will be so thankful that they're going to commit more to you. kind of thing. And so now it's not just, okay, well, and right now, because of the explosion of AI, a lot of people aren't even being seen. And so it now creates which is why I'm building now something to fix that. But there is a level of, more often than not, you kind of get lost in the shuffle. And the bigger the company, the more you become a number rather than a human being and a person. And again, it's more management rather than leadership. It's more, I don't want to lose my job, so I'm going to yell and scream at you for not doing this and not doing that. But meanwhile, I'm not necessarily lifting you and kind of going, okay, like right now I have a woman that's doing my social media and all organic. Say she took my Facebook, like we did a brand new Facebook page, and in a month and a half, that Facebook page had 150,000 views. And I was like, this is like, I've spent way too much money. Like I spent about $150,000 on 5 different marketing agencies that promised me the world and told me they needed at least 3 months to figure the algorithms out. And then I got zero results from it because they were copy and paste what they do for every single client because this is quote unquote the way it should work. She stops after a week. And goes, this is not working. Let's try this here. And so, again, even my Instagram right now, it's growing at I think 40% rate, roughly. I don't know. Again, I never really actively used Instagram. I opened it because I knew I needed it. But, when she started, I had, 400 followers on Instagram. We're now at 2,300 and it's like 2 months and it's all organic and it's all. So whenever she's like, I think we should do this, I'm like, whatever you're doing is working. You just tell me what you need from me. I will stay out of your way because clearly you know what you're doing. And, and so it's the same level where I'm building an AI right now. My CTO, you speak to me in tech stack, you're speaking Chinese to me. I have no idea what you're saying. You tell me what you need. I'll get you the resources you need. That's it kind of thing. And I understand that. Right. Go ahead. Sorry.
I was going to say, it sounds like there is this human element that is a premium, and people really need to understand the value of having that human element, understanding who people are, getting to know them before the transactional part and before there's this exchange. Like in your line of work and what you do, a lot of our listeners are corporate professionals considering, maybe I should move abroad. Maybe I should start my own business. I need a change. Something is not working. And so when you told me that list of 10 things and salary is number 7, I have to think, it's toxic workplace, as you mentioned, number 1. And there are a couple of others like lack of appreciation and lack of agency to do things in the company. You're not able to create. You're not able to build. That these people who are now considering leaving force and going into entrepreneurship, hope for them to stay in the corporate space. I mean, I guess if the company has the Celebrate group come in, then yes. But if not, then what are we going to do?
Actually, yeah. So I'm building an AI system called Cultural Transformation Systems, and I named it on that on purpose. And it combines not only the technical skills, but the soft and character skills and the behavior so that, companies can actually engage employees because, for example, not everybody wants to be a C-level executive. So if, let's say, Jamila, you're more driven by learning new things. What if I was able to give a company data that says, okay, Jamila loves learning new things. So tell her what she's going to learn on the project she's doing, and then incentivize her that if she achieves certain KPIs, you will pay for development, whether it's professional or personal, for example. Whereas then if Bob just wants to be told that they're doing a good job, once a month, I'm going to hold a ceremony for Bob, and I'm going to give Bob a certificate, and I'm going to give him a $25 gift certificate to a movie, but I'm going to take the time to acknowledge Bob because that's more important to Bob. Now, if I'm driven by travel, for example, again, set up KPIs for me, and if I achieve or surpass those KPIs, the company will pay for vacations that don't count as part of your vacation time. And so there's the integration of Here's my intrinsic values. Here's my, social responsibility interest. Here's my communication style. Here's my love language, which not enough people talk about, because we talk about love language in relationships, but what if it was applied in business world where this is how you want to be kind of admired, accepted, appreciated as a whole? And so there will be a massive cultural shift where the reason a lot of people fear entrepreneurship is that fear of what if I don't have a paycheck for a month or 2 months and so forth. So there's a comfort level with the paycheck. But understand that people that leave jobs aren't leaving jobs for $5,000 raise or a $10,000 raise. So leaving job because they're hoping that the grass is green on another side. And so there's also a side where even when you're interviewing for a role, for example, if I were in an interview, and these are some of the questions I love asking at the end of the interview to kind of get a sense. So, Jamila, you work for this company. What do you love about working here? If the answer is the pay is great, run away from that company because the culture is horrible. Because no one's going to mention the pay grade unless you're, let's say, running a mutual fund where you're making millions to billions of dollars kind of thing, right? But most people remember the fact that there's a company barbecue, there's flexible hours, there's casual work environment, there's, we go for dinner once a month or something. That's what people remember. That's what people need. And people need that human connection. Again, if you look sometimes where it's like, okay, you're working in a warehouse and like, we need to make this number. But executives often forget that we need that water cooler conversation. Like, did you watch the game yesterday? Did you go to the concert? Did you this? Because it allows us to recenter, refocus, and kind of re-energize a little bit. So will everybody become an entrepreneur? No, because again, statistically, only 10% of people actually, if that, maybe it's 3, I think it's only 3%, will actually become entrepreneurs. But understand that, again, it's not about the title. It's not necessarily about the pay, because like I said, pay is number 7. If you're, let's say, I'm going to use an administrative assistant. Take care of the person. Do things to show that you appreciate them as opposed to just here's a generic bonus, for example, that's kind of calculated exactly to the penny of it, right? Like I'll use accounting, for example. Accounting has one of the very high burnout rate because especially to get your CPA designation, it takes 3 years. And it used to be that you have to work in audit and you have to work the 80 hours a week during tax season and so forth. But companies that are starting to understand, okay, maybe we can pay for a gym membership. Maybe we can do this where like we have a box to sporting events. So give our employees the opportunity to go to the box to enjoy the games, for example, right? Not just the executives to go and the high end kind of let the actual employees
Treated
enjoy
well.
it.
Yeah.
Right. I don't think that they'll leave. I think that they're like, what I'm building is to bring back that idea that people want to stay working for a company for 30, 40 years because they're treated right. And I'm creating a platform that will allow for customized engagement where, again, if you kind of say, these are my top 10 priorities and this is the order I put them in, and I just want to be treated well there. Now, if you go into the system and say, hey, I'm about to have a kid, my priorities change now. I need more money because I need to pay for the expense of the kid. What will happen in my system is that the executives will get a notification saying, hey, Jamila is an amazing worker here. She just found out that she's pregnant. She needs more money. Understand that the statistics in North America, and I speak to North America as that's where most of my research is done, one job posting costs between $100,000 and $180,000 per month to be vacant. Per month, right? So, for example, Costco has cashiers that work full time that make $100,000 a year plus benefits because Costco's calculated that to lose one good cashier, and they measure the cashiers on how fast you are, how accurate you are, and most importantly, your ability to do quick chit chat, but keep the line going so that people feel welcome, for example, cost them on average $140,000 to lose one good cashier. So if you get hired as a cashier in Costco, again, depending on where you are across the US, but I'm going to use Ontario, Canada, because that's where I live. So minimum wage right now is about $17 for any retail job. Costco will start you at about $21 as a cashier. And if you pass probation in the first 6 months, you score well in one of those three categories, they will give you a $5 raise just so you don't leave them, so that you stay there.
It is there.
70% of the back office at Costco started being cashiers or pushing carts. And again, when they get promoted at Costco, Costco gives them a month and a half to train their replacement, so that you're not just doing surface training. You're actually showing them some of the harder, issues that are escalated and how to deal with them, so that whoever's replacing you is ready for it. Now, if you go to Costco any day of the week and you look at the people there, they're smiling, they're happy. Like, it's crazy. Like, the worst Costco store in Ontario, Canada does $1 million a day. No, Wednesday, $1 million. And so they understand. And again, other retail giant, Walmart has very much the opposite, where it's micromanaged, yell at you, scream at you,
Walmart horror stories out there.
Right. And so two giants, but very different approach to kind of people and culture. And so this is where I think once, and again, I know there's always going to be exceptions, but once I'm going to say industries like engineering, accounting, pharma start understanding the importance of just small things to take care of their people, creating a culture where it's not necessarily the highest pay, but there's a level of appreciation, acknowledgement, and acceptance, the 3 A's that form love, basically, then you're going to have people are more productive, people are more creative, people are going to try harder. They're going to care about what they do. And it will make everything easier, because you're not going to have to deal with, oh my God, we didn't make $4.3 billion in profits in one of the industries I said earlier that is untouchable. Then we need to fire half our staff, because that's not going to happen, because your productivity is going to go over, you increase until it plateaus year over year. But in most organizations, there's so much room for implementing small things, like Google, Facebook, you can have whatever food you want. There's buses that pick you up from your house and drive you to work that have full Wi-Fi and TV and video games and whatever on the bus, so that if you want to work while you're on your way to work, if you want to play video games, and because they do so much for the people and the actual experience of it, that's why people kind of, and again, I know people that have left, like let's say Microsoft, and have left this because it was, I want to build this and I want to do this. And it was now like, I've worked here, I've learned, now I'm ready for the next phase. But again, that's relatively speaking a small percentage of people. It's people leave because, again, it's not worth the money.
It's the key. And I think there are these other, shapeless things where people want to leave. But in this day and age, a lot of people are looking for new jobs. A lot of people are out there looking. And some of the things I found is that, number one, they're having difficulty finding this sort of utopian role where they feel appreciated, they're allowed to use their expertise and show their creativity. But number two, it's just difficult to land a job. And you do a lot of work in that space and showing people how to get from this space of I need a job to I have the perfect role. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah. So I'm going to address that in a few ways in kind of an overall thing. So I think the first problem in I need a job is that most people are passive and reactive, meaning I've sent out 100 resumes on Indeed. Now, even though Indeed says, don't call us, we'll call you, we've stopped being proactive to call HR and say, oh, my internet just disconnected, or my battery just died, or my computer suddenly rebooted while I was trying to submit the application, or I didn't get any confirmation. Can you please check that my application went through? Understand that one job posting on Indeed in North America gets between 350 and 5,000 resumes. Most companies look at the first 100. So if you're 102 in that list, you're probably not being seen. So the moment that you call and they check their system, you're first on that list. Have your 2 minutes to kind of go, here's something I've done that's relevant to what you're looking for. And also ask, when are you starting to interview for this role? So if they say, well, we're interviewing in a week, say, okay, well, Jamila, if I don't hear from you in about a week, can I call you back to get some feedback on why my resume wasn't selected? Now you're planting a seed of follow-up. But just that, I have a quick side story. I had a friend of mine that graduated mechanical engineering, and, ironically enough, you needed 5 years of experience to do a entry-level job. And after sending out about 150 resumes, not getting a response, he picked 20 companies that he wanted to work for, went to the first one, like printed his resume, went there, was like, hi, I'd like to speak to the director. They're like, do you have an appointment? He's like, no. They're like, he's busy. He's like, okay, I'll wait. And he sat there at reception in the corner without bothering anybody until about 2:30 in the afternoon. At 2:30 in the afternoon, the director came out and goes, I understand you've been waiting for me all day. How can I help you? And my friend was like, I know you don't have anything posted. I just graduated mechanical engineering. This is who I am. These are some of the projects I've done. And basically in a 10-minute conversation at reception was hired for a position that did not exist. So that's the first, kind of be more proactive. Second thing is, people kind of give generic, I know how to do this. I have experience in that. So I love to give these two examples. If you're applying to be a receptionist somewhere and you tell me that you know how to answer the phones, I hope the employer looks at you in shock and goes, really? A receptionist that knows how to answer the phone? We did not know that. Because unless you live in an igloo, a cave, or practice a faith of Mennonite, my 2.5-year-old son can press the green button and go, hello. And it's really cute, right? But if you quantify, I know how to answer 60 calls a day with 12 different lines. I can measure 60 calls a day with 12 different lines. I cannot measure, I know how to answer the phone. Now, if I use an example from my career, because people will relate that, I can say to you, Jamila, I'm an excellent salesperson. I know how to do B2B, B2C, account management, relationship building, lead generation. I've worked in retail. I've done door-to-door sales. I've done car sales. I've worked in private education. I've worked in recruitment. I know how to do sales. Now, all the words I just said, they're important for the algorithm of job boards and job finding as a whole. But just because I had a lot of jobs does not mean I know how to sell. I could be horrible at it. But if I start giving you quantifiable, like I worked for a private college that before I came in generated $530,000 in sales for the year. In 1 month, I generated $860,000 for them. Which one would convince you that I know how to do sales? The
Numbers,
first one?
Right.
Right. So most people go, oh, well, I'll tell them the numbers when I go to the interview. No, I don't read you. Because unless you've worked for like Google or Intel or Amazon on the coding side, I don't know who you are. I don't know how good you are. And if I don't know you, I'm going to assume you've done a lot less than you have by default. So standard word, especially if you're getting into executive roles, reporting. I know how to do reporting. Great. You did a 1 to 2 page report. Whoop-de-doo. All right. But if you're like, wait a minute, I did 3 different models of risk and I calculated, variance, this, and that, and then I generated a 2-page report, I can go, okay, so you took like a lot of data and consolidated to the executive for 2 pages. That's impressive. But telling me that you know how to do a report is redundant for me, right? People fill their resume with fluff. Hardworking, dedicated, committed team player with excellent communication skills and interpersonal skills, for example.
Where?
Have you ever met anyone that goes to an interview and goes, listen, I'm lazy, I'll show up late, none of my work will be any good, and I really hate people. Please hire me? Not unless you're related to them or having an affair with them that you might be able to get away with that kind of thing, right? So stop, and let's use hardworking. How do you define hardworking? So if I use the pandemic as an example, an accountant during tax season needs to work mandatory, usually 80 hours a week. So what's hardworking? 100? And I compare that to a nurse at the height of the pandemic that had to work, let's say, 3-4 hours of overtime because there was such a shortage of nurses. So does that mean that the nurse is less hardworking than the accountant because she's working less hours or he's working less hours? No, because there's a different level of stress and a different level of needs for each role. So stop giving resumes with all that fluff, because every company has their own culture and every company has their own definition. You're currently in Dubai. If they work on Sundays, and in the US, you have Saturday, Sunday off. So just because you work on Sundays in Dubai, does that mean that you're more hardworking than an American that's not working on Sunday? No, because again, it depends on the role and depends on kind of what's happening there. So stop being so generic. Use recruiters, employment agencies, staffing firms more, because they already have ins with companies that you're trying to get into. And, even for networking, most people go to networking and go, oh, can I get a job? You're an executive. Here's my resume. Can I get a job? You haven't earned the right. Get to know the person you're speaking to first. I'm wearing a purple hoodie because I'm in basement. It's cold. I have a purple shirt on. It's my branding color. If you look me up, I'm in purple all the time. When I go to a networking event, I have a purple shirt on, I have a purple bag, purple pen, purple business cards, purple notebook. Because if I go to events where there's 50,000 people there, when I send an email, say, hi, I'm the guy in purple, you might not remember my name, but you'll remember the purple, for example. So brand yourself when you're networking. Go networking and don't be like, hey, I'm looking at a job. So like, oh, Jamila, you're an executive for this company. What made you so successful? What are your 3 biggest achievements, or what are you most proud of? Why? How do you lead your team? How do you inspire them? If you were mentoring someone in this field, what would you focus on? And learn from what they're saying, because when you start a conversation with, tell me about you, rather than me, I need a job, you earn trust. So if I go to you, Jamila, I'm actually in this industry myself. Would you mind reviewing my resume and giving me feedback? I'm not asking for a job. I'm asking for your expertise. But here's what's going to happen when I ask that. If you review my resume, you're going to write the resume you want to hire.
People don't think about it that way.
Correct. Most people just kind of go, I'll send an Indeed resumes and so forth. So if your resume has, I know how to do something, rather than here's the quantifiable results of what I do, right? And approach, let's say, networking with, like, I'm on your podcast and it's an honor to be on your podcast, but use a podcast as a platform to land a job by reaching out to executives of companies that you want to work for and interview about their genius. Let them speak about what they know, just like I'm speaking right now about job finding and corporate culture and recruiting as a whole. Learn from it and then use that to start a conversation about, I want to work for you because you know what? I'm so inspired by what you said. I want to make you look good. I want to help you get a better bonus, a bigger bonus, because I'm going to produce these results for you. Very different conversation. Hi, I'm looking for a job and I'm really good. I'm really hardworking and dedicated, committed team player with excellent communication skills.
Yeah. And I know that there's so many people who are listening to this who are also taking notes and really trying to understand, how do I reposition myself? Because like you said, it's not 100% of the time that entrepreneurship is going to be the answer. Sometimes you may need to change companies. You may need to change where you're at right now. I guess my final question to you, Joseph, would be, if we're going to sit down and to talk to one of our listeners, a lot of these people are at the point where, I've worked in the same company for 15 years, 20 years. I don't know what I want to do next. I think I want to move abroad, or I think I want to start a company. But to be honest, I really don't know. What would you say to them?
So first of all, do an inventory of what you like and what you don't like, right? So I love this part of my job, but I hate this part of the job, right? Be honest yourself. So, I use the SCI principle: security, income, growth, or happiness. Which one's most important to you? They're all important, but which one would you put first, right? SCI. At the end of the day, if money didn't matter, if, you could get money, whether it's what you're making now or more than that, whatever that is for you, what would light your passion? What would be your purpose? And most success books, leadership books, talk about, find your passion, find your purpose. Don't just do it for the paycheck. Do it because you wake up and you're excited to speak about this. You're excited about making this. Took me 9 different careers and over 18 different jobs to put it all together and go, I love helping people. I love knowing that I made a difference in their lives and I made an impact possibly for generations for them. Because again, not everybody's ready to be an entrepreneur. But when you are aligned with, this is my values, this is what excites me, this is what drives me, everything else will fall into place. And have faith in whatever religion you believe in, that you weren't put on this earth to be miserable. You weren't put on this earth to suffer. You might have taken a path that led you this way, but it might have discovered, I worked in finance for 7 years. I discovered I'll invest, but I don't want to do it as a job. Right. So there's things like that it's okay to have experiences. It's okay to fail, as long as you understand, here's what you learn from it and here's how you become better. I only got married 7 years ago. I'll be 48 in a week. And I have 2 amazing, beautiful kids and an amazing, supportive wife. And as much as I wanted to get married before, I don't think I was ready. I was going to, I had a business partner that taught me, a $500,000 life lesson and things like that derailed some of the master plan. But everything happens in divine time. And if you're willing to receive, not just, oh my God, but just sit and kind of, okay, here's who I am. Here's what I want. Like, I want this kind of culture. I want this kind of work. And the more specific you are, the better it is. Don't be like, I want to be appreciative. What does that look like to you? Define it, because we define it for relationships. Like, I want someone who's this tall. I want somebody with this sense of humor. Like, not every comedian is going to be your cup of tea. You know, like, for example, like Kevin Hart, one of the biggest comedians in the world. There are some bits I found funny, but overall, I don't like. He's not one comedian that I'm like, yeah, I'm going to spend $400 to go watch in a show. Again, I'm not his demographic, technically, of comedy either, but there's a level where I go to stand-up comedy all the time. I used to do a little bit of stand-up because I wanted to see if I could, but there's a level of, this is not my cup of tea of humor, and just own that. That's not part of your thing. Own that for your job too. Own, I do this because this pays my bill, but it doesn't fuel me. Okay, then what does? Explore that, and the more you do, the easier it'll become, and step into that and align so that you are. And again, be more proactive. Don't just be reactive and wait for a response for something.
Josef Stetter, thank you so much for coming on the show.
My pleasure and honor.
Want to connect with you and find you. I know you're on Instagram. Is there any preferred way?
I'm on all the social media platforms.
On all the social media.
So I'm on all the social medias. For my last name, if you think of the word stutter, it's an E instead of a U. So STE instead of STU. That's the easiest way. I'm most active on LinkedIn. I've written over 12,000 resumes. I've helped people get jobs in as little as 2 days. And I think it's about marketing yourself and kind of, I highlight your genius, not just I know, but here's how amazing I am at what I do, regardless of the type of work that you do. I tend to focus more on white collar professionals because, again, obviously there's a fee for my services, but there's a level of I can get you in the door because I do things more from a perspective of, here's your genius and here's why you matter to a company, rather than here's what I do.
So much for sharing your wisdom with us today. And I know there are some people out there who are currently in the job search and may not just take notes, but also may reach out as well. Thanks so much for joining us, Josef.
Thank you for having me.
Hey guys, thank you so much for tuning in and listening to today's episode. I appreciate when you guys tune in and the time that you take to listen to the show and support us. And I have one thing that I'd love for you to do that would really help us out, which is rate the show. If you've enjoyed it, make sure you rate it. You can do it on whatever platform you're listening on. That would do wonders for us. And if you really want to be a super fan and really support the show, there's a link below that you can support us and donate a small monthly contribution, which allows us to continue to create great content for you. Thanks so much again. Appreciate you and see you next time.